You've just heard the objections to the Charter Commission's proposed changes. Now we hear from PSU professor, international negotiator, author, and the co-chair of the 20-member Charter Commission that came up with the plan. Melanie Billings-Young, welcome back to Eye on Northwest Politics.
Thanks, Ken, for having me back.
Organized opponents now include a city commissioner who was all in before the details came out and a member of the Charter Commission. What do you think this does to your chances in November?
I don't think it changes much. We weren't surprised to get opposition, particularly from those people who have benefited from the current electoral system. Obviously, the kind of change that we're looking at is threatening to them, and I understand that.
Well, let's talk about what Commissioner Mingus Mapps is saying. He says he supports expanding the council, and he also says that he's against the single ballot measure encompassing so many changes at one time. So why include so many changes in this one proposal?
Because it was always seen as a single proposal, a change of our form of government. If we hadn't included all of those things, the system wouldn't work. It's like a three-legged stool. Everything relies on everything else. If we take away the role of commissioner from our city council, we have to give them another very important representative and legislative role. If we want that representation to be inclusive of all Portlanders, it needs to involve the multi-member districts. And if we want multi-member districts to work, it has to be by ranked choice voting.
Explain ranked choice voting and the reasoning for including that in your proposal.
Ranked choice voting is becoming a very popular system across the world, but especially across the United States. 43 jurisdictions now use it. 55 will be in the next election. What ranked choice voting does is two really important things. The first is it removes the primaries, where only a very small subset of the population actually votes, and elections can be determined on, for example, in 2022, the vote of 37% of the registered voters. The second thing that it does is it gives people more choice. If your first choice is not elected, then your second choice will bounce over, and so you have a certain voice there. And what they find is that satisfaction by voters in all of the cities that are using ranked choice voting now has not only gone up exponentially, but the number of voters coming out has also gone up. People feel now that their choice is listened to.
Well, let's look at the cost of implementing these changes. The Charter Commission's own estimates put ongoing costs of between $900,000 to $8.7 million annually. That is quite a range. So do we really know how much this will cost taxpayers?
I think a fair answer is no. The range was to be as dramatic as it could be. It will be somewhere within that range. The city's working on it right now, the people in the financial office. It is a very large range, but it's nice to know what the top number is. The important thing here is that it does not include any potential cost savings that would come from this. For example, by a more efficient running of the government, or by having our representatives share an office within their own district. So there are, and not having that primary. So there are a lot of cost savings that isn't included in these numbers.
How does this proposal change what the mayor can and can't do? And should the mayor have veto power?
The mayor will no longer be a commissioner as he is now, as our current mayor is, but he would, or she would, depending on who replaces Mayor Wheeler, would manage the city administrator. That would be a professional city manager type person who is in charge of all the bureaus and reports directly to the mayor. The mayor would name that person. The city council would have to confirm. The mayor additionally would put together the budget that would be voted on by the city council. The mayor is in charge of running the day-to-day operations through that city manager. And then finally, the mayor would have a tie-breaking vote if the city council were to come down to six versus 6. Why does the mayor not have a veto? Couple of reasons. First of all, to be clear, vetoes are only used very, very rarely. And of the top 40 cities in the US, 10 of them don't have vetoes, including Houston, which has a similar mayor council form. The main reason we chose not to do a veto is because we heard from Portlanders, not only this go around, but in the way they voted when they defeated this measure back in 2007, was they did not like the idea of giving too much power to the mayor. They wanted a much stronger system of checks and balances, which I believe we have provided with this measure.
Do you advocate keeping the mayor as police commissioner, or would that require a new position under your proposal?
There will be a new position, but unlike most of the other bureau heads, the police commissioner would be nominated directly by the mayor and approved by the city council.
Well, equity was a consideration in creating this proposal. Why is that important in the context of changing the structure of city government?
Portland has become a far more diverse city over the century that this commission form of government has been in practice. And yet we're still seeing that there's a lot of domination by wealth, which is the result of having, for example, everyone have to run at large. So if everyone is running at large, elections become quite expensive. And by having it become more based on districts, more people are able to run, more voices are able to be heard. And that is not just looking at different races throughout our city, but also very much looking at the difference between the needs of renters versus homeowners, between the needs of those people who live down closer into the central city, those people who live farther out towards the edges of the city. We wanted the voice of all Portlanders to be heard, not just those who could afford to run in a elected at large system.
We just have a little bit of time here. I want to ask, does this dilute the effectiveness or the accountability of city commissioners, having so many more of them on the city council?
I think it really increases them. It's ridiculous to have 4 people representing 650,000. We had 4 people representing 200,000 back in 1913 when this was passed. We're looking at other cities of about our size. They have 12 to 13, so we're right in the sweet spot, about 1 for every 50,000 people. And in terms of the multi-member, one real advantage there is that no single person can be an expert on everything that is facing Portland right now, from trash to homelessness, to crime, to street traffic. And so by having more representatives, you can have more people who are actually responding to the Portland public on the issues that they are facing.
Melanie Billings-Yuen, thank you for being here on Eye on Northwest Politics again.
Thank you.